Every film moves and breathes on its own. Every film has a life of its own, and you have to just dig in and start seeing what works to make this film that you're working on look its best.
In this episode, I talk with Mark Todd Osborne, a colorist in Los Angeles with over 18 years experience. He has worked on films like Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Bad Boys 2, Hugo, Need for Speed, as well as many commercials and music videos. Mark got his start at Company 3 and spent 11 years there working with top colorists Stefan Sonnefeld, Dave Hussey, and Mike Pethel. He also spent some time at Cameron Pace, working on stereoscopic projects on Quantel Pablo. What's most impressive about Mark's career is his ability to work in many different genres. Working in commercials, television, cinema, music videos, and even video games has been part of his successful career. In this interview, we talk about the challenges and benefits of being a freelance colorist, using social media and how it impacts getting booked on jobs, working on your own system versus working at a facility, and advice for new colorists. Stay tuned after this interview for info on our first software giveaway. And now, here's Mark Todd Osborne. Hey, Mark. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming by.
Hey, thanks for asking me.
You have an interesting background. You started at Company 3. How did you get started with color in general?
It goes just a little back before Company 3. I was a daytime assistant colorist at Encore Santa Monica. Larry Chernoff, actually, I owe a lot to for giving me a color start because he gave me a bay to practice in every day for many months. He ended up starting to book me. I learned how to balance a chart, just the basics. He started booking me on little jobs, little music video here and there. And, I kind of cut my teeth there for a little while. But at the time, Stefan Sonnefeld kind of breezed through our building. He four-walled a room for a while he was waiting for Company 3 to be built. And I just went ahead and called Stefan up, cold called him, and just said, look, I've just barely started to learn how to color, 6 months. I don't want to mess myself up teaching myself. Can I learn your way? And he hired me over the phone right there. He accepted. I came over. He made me assist him for a little while to learn his ways. It wasn't long before he saw me coloring some film, and he said, wow, you've got an eye. He said, not many people have the eye for color. A lot of people can work the equipment, but you need to have an eye, And so that encouraged me because I didn't know I had any talent for coloring. And so that just, he took whatever seed of talent I had and he just kind of encouraged it, and I grew it from there. And he instantly put me as his dailies colorist. I worked in a bay beside him while he did finals, and I instantly adopted all of his clients, and they billed me as his protege, and that's how I got my start.
And this is only when Company 3 was about 7 people.
Yeah, it was in 97, November. I called him when he had been officially open for 2 months. So it was just a small group of us there.
And then after that, I know that you did some work at Cameron Pace as well.
I did. Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I had been out of Company 3 for a couple of years. I did a little bit of freelancing for Light Iron, and I learned the Pablo there. And since I knew the Pablo, they had a Pablo over at Cameron Pace, and my name got tossed over to Vince Pace, who is like good friends with James Cameron, and he designs a lot of camera systems for him and rigs. And he gave me a test. He kind of gave me a few little tiny jobs, and then he gave me a big test. He said, Mark, I have this movie that we need to sell to Paramount. It's called Cirque du Soleil in 3D. And he said, it's shot with about 7 to 10 different cameras. It's all over the place. We need you to make it all look cohesive, make it look balanced. And he said the colorist that was assigned to do the final was really hitting it hard in the shadows and the blacks and popping the whites, kind of treating it like a music video. And he said, that person is crushing out all of my 3D. Can you preserve the 3D but still give it a strong look? And I said, yes. So I went on that film and I made that film look great. I was really proud of it. So was Vince. They sold it to Paramount because of that screening. And that's when he hired me as a supervising colorist.
So what are your thoughts with Pablo? I mean, that's not something that you bump across a lot in this town too much. I mean, there's still some around. Light Iron still uses a Pablo as well, right?
Yeah, from what I hear, I know they've got Da Vinci's as well. I've heard of a few colorists there that I think choose to work on Da Vinci. They primarily use the Pablo for their workflow.
What about the Pablo did you like?
Well, it was exciting to me just to learn something so different from DaVinci 2K. And then I moved on, and suddenly now I was given the challenge of working with Pablo, and it just was such a different box. It was an all-in-one box, and it was cool because it wasn't like jack of all trades, kind of a thing. It was a master in each category. It was a very good online editor, a good VFX box, and a very strong color corrector. And so it's exciting just to learn this new box that I could actually, if I wanted to, do a little bit of painting and things that I hadn't done at Company 3.
So you were at one post facility, and then you've been at other post facilities as staff, but then when you start working as freelance, were you able to tell what the pros and cons of each of those positions were?
Basically, the first few years was just establishing myself as an A-level talent that is not attached to a Company 3 or a Technicolor, which in my case has been very beneficial because there seems to be a high demand out there for that person. It's good as I've developed a name now where work just comes to me. People say, I've heard of you. I need you at this facility. This is where the job is. And that's kind of how it's been. So
these days it's not too tough for you to be booked. It's just basically people call you up, and do you ever have a hard time booking jobs, or do you have any strategies?
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, to circle back to your pros and cons of freelance, that's the one thing that's tough for me in freelance is the booking, because I want to take every job I can, like any freelance artist. But you can't. You can only appease so many people at the same time. And I always get calls for everyone wants me to work the same 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm sure you've had that too, where you're like, I'm not booked the week before and after the week you want me to work. Or like, that has to be done this week, that particular week. So it's always a juggling adventure of trying to, ask one client to either, can you push your schedule? Is there any flexibility to move your schedule before, or let me work at night for you? I've done that before too, where one client says, fine, I'll take you at night. And the other one's like, I'll take you during the day. I try not to do that anymore, but it happens occasionally.
The one thing that I really do notice about your style of getting booked is that you're always out on social media. You're always out promoting yourself. Has your visibility in social media and using your website, do you think that's really improved your ability to get booked?
In this day and age, for better or for worse, we have to use social media. It's just the way things are. And I actually got this tip from Shane Hurlburt, working with him on Need for Speed. He was telling me about how his wife had encouraged him to brand himself. And I thought, that's a good idea. So since Need for Speed, I really said, I'm going to brand myself as a colorist. And so that when people see my work or hear my name, they instantly have an image of what they're going to get, like hopefully a good, strong image of the level of quality.
Yeah, and with all of that is your reel, which is killer, of course, and checked it out several times. And do you think that also, is there any specific things about how you put your reel together as part of your whole package that really encourage people to get you booked?
My first thought about reels is I hate them.
Yeah.
I hate doing them. I never have time. I'm so far behind of what I'd like to put out. I've got so much content that I'm ready to put out. I just don't. Every time I start to cut a reel, I get booked, and then I'm off it. And then I kind of just let it go to the wayside. But you have to keep a reel as well. It's important because there are still people out there that need proof. There's a lot of agencies that need proof. I've discovered that in order to get food commercials, which I try to do everything. I like dipping my fingers in several pies. I like car commercials. I like food. I like TV episodic when I can get it. I like music videos. And then, of course, I love my features and commercials. But you can't get a food commercial if you don't have current food. They don't care if you made 20 car commercials look awesome. They don't care. They want to make sure you can make lettuce look edible. So it's they always just want to, they'll say, well, you got any food on your reel? Or vice versa, you have any cars on your reel? So I just find that if I keep enough of everything, it always basically, it answers those questions. But I can field any question I get, what do you have? And I've got it,
Yeah, and sometimes it gets really specific, too. They go, have you done a car commercial? Have you done a Ford commercial? Have you done a truck commercial? Have you done a blue truck commercial? No? Okay, then never mind.
Yeah, business is so particular that, yeah, if all you do is red car in the desert commercials, then it's like, oh, you're the red car in the desert commercial guy. And that's ridiculous. Like, you get questions like, can you do a blue car near the ocean? It amazes me sometimes. People can be a little short-sighted about having vision for you. But I've come to understand that it's all about comfortability. And so I understand it and I don't get upset about it anymore. I realize that they just want to make sure you're the right person, that you've done this type of work. You know what I mean? And it's not personal. It's just, if they're doing a pour commercial where it's about the pour, the liquid going into the glass, there's a lot of neat little things you need to know about that. And so they want to see if you've done any food pours, liquid pour. It's crazy, but that's just the way the industry is, and I understand it. Freelance, again, it's great because you can work your own hours. The thing that I don't like about freelance as well is sometimes you've got to chase billing every now and then. And I'm sure a lot of us freelance artists have experienced that. Having said that, there's a lot of pros to working with a major company or even if it's a small boutique. I do sometimes miss the team player aspect of working for a large company. I don't know. I always felt it was all for the good of one when I was at Company 3. We were all working hard for the same goals. There's something to be said about that. But at the same time, you can sometimes get pigeonholed at a facility and get known as, oh, well, you just do that. And that's what you do, and you can't grow out of that. That's one thing that I've been very careful about in this business is I never, ever will be pigeonholed as, oh, you're this type of colorist or that. Like, oh, you're a features guy. I'm like, no, well, look at my reel. I'm also a commercials guy. But you have to have the aesthetic for it. Some people out there that they only want to be in television, and probably they only have time for television because television is very time consuming anyway. So that's all they do. So they're not really going to get commercial work, and nor do they want it probably anyway. But it's just because they're known as being, you're a TV guy, or a TV gal. But for me as a freelancer, it was always in my best interest to stay abreast of all types of media. So, and I don't actually get those questions anymore either. When I first left, I get an email from a potential client saying, oh yeah, I see that you've done a lot of big features, but can you do web content? And I'm like, yeah, I can. But I don't get that. Or I've had people say, oh, you're primarily a features guy. And again, I don't like those questions because it's like, it pigeonholes you. It's like a cameraman that has shot 5 successful comedies and suddenly now they're known as a comedy shooter and they can't get a drama. It happens in all fields. Same with editors. You cut funny spots, suddenly you're a comedy cutter, but you want to cut that real serious spot, but you don't get that opportunity. So you have to sometimes prove yourself to the world or prove yourself to the industry what you can do.
Were there any things that you had trouble breaking into? Because I know Company 3 did a lot of music videos and commercials, and they did some features as well. Was there any market that was difficult for you to break into?
Well, it was hard I always wanted to do video game footage, and finally I got a chance to do that for Blizzard. And then last night I just did an Xbox commercial. So, I've been able to do some video game type stuff. It's kind of fun. That was one new territory that I hadn't conquered. And I don't do a lot of it, but I get it every now and then now. Because I did one, it's like you can get to do others if you've done one. That's an interesting world. Probably the last hurdle I had to conquer was after being at Company 3 and being able to work on all these big features. Once I left, you don't get the opportunity to work on the really multi-million-dollar high range features when you're a freelancer. My features generally can be anywhere between 15, 20 million to maybe upwards to 30, 40 million, kind of mid-range budgets. So that was one thing I needed to conquer is I need to do a big movie again because somebody out there needs to hear that, needs to know that. I was up for a big 3D film in China. I'd been highly recommended, so they believed in my ability through all the recommendations I got. But what happened was eventually they said, oh, well, we're looking at your resume and you've done so many films, but we haven't seen an Iron Man 3 on your resume in a while, something that level.
Right.
And I tried to tell them, I said, Don't you understand that it doesn't matter whether you shot a film for $500 or 500 million? I'm going to make the image you give to me the best it can be. It's the comfortability factor. They're like, yeah, but they just felt more comfortable if I had helmed a tentpole film. So I understood it. And what's funny is 2 months later, I got Need for Speed, and that was, I believe they said that was anywhere between 80 to 100 million on that. And so they instantly called me back once I got that movie because, oh, yeah, now you've done a big movie. It's just funny. You just sometimes have to, you just got to do that, and prove to people, yeah, I can handle that too.
One thing actually that probably people coming up end up doing too, and I don't know if you advise for or against this, but doing work for free or for low pay in order to break into those markets.
Yeah, you gotta, there's a point everybody has to do the freebie here and there. I definitely try not to do that anymore. It's a slippery slope. I mean, it's okay to cut your rate and help somebody out now and then. You just don't want to get known for that. And it also could be bad for our colorist industry. I want to keep our wages at a certain level because once you start undercutting everybody, then the bar starts getting lowered and lowered for what a colorist is supposed to earn. There's a reason why they need us. We're the last person to visually inspect the film and get it where it needs to go. And it's a high art, and I think we got to keep it there. I actually learned that at Company 3 years back when we first started doing dailies. We had to lose a few clients to some of our competitors that were cheaper. I always remember Mike Pethel telling me, it's okay. We're going to let them go find out why they pay the prices they do at Company 3. And sure enough, 5, 6, 7 months later, a lot of them came right back and said, boy, I had the worst experience. Or the look was okay, but it wasn't the level you guys were giving us. And it kind of it validated why they paid what they paid with us. We set a bar. And sometimes you have to let people go and discover that. Same with this whole Da Vinci free thing. It's both good and kind of bad. It's good because it's great that it gives people the opportunity to just understand what the system, what coloring is all about. But on the other hand, it's like people that grab a camera. Cameras are easy to get now, and everyone's suddenly a cinematographer. You've got 20-year-olds calling themselves senior colorists, and I think that's disingenuous. You can't be a senior colorist until you've had just a few years under your belt, I think, doing it and doing it successfully. And what's funny is there was a time when Da Vinci became light, I had to let a few clients go and get that cheap guy, that guy that has it at his house and is okay. And why anybody would trust their project to someone who's just okay, I'll never know. Because the project it's your resume. If you want to be a director and if you're trying to make more money directing, you should get the best of each talent for that particular area. Get the best editor, get the best DP and colorist. So a lot of those clients came back too because they said, the cheap guy really botched it up. Or even if they didn't botch it up, the cheap guy or the guy that didn't have as much talent as other people have, they noticed it. They're like, that guy just couldn't get where I wanted him to go or her to go. So, and it takes years to learn that. I've been doing it now 18 years, and I'm a way different colorist now than I was 7 years ago. I'm light years away from where I was.
Do you attribute that to bouncing around from place to place and different types of projects as well? Yeah,
that grew me a lot by just jumping on different boxes. I learned about 4 or 5 different boxes, I guess. Luster, Pablo, of course, Resolve, New Coda. Had to learn Avid DS for a couple of jobs, but I don't recommend doing that if you can. It's archaic. It's not the same as a Resolve or another system. That definitely grew me. It forced me to think outside the box. It grew me as an artist to learn other tools. And I know when I left Company 3, I suddenly became very hungry to gain more knowledge about the craft, just like rediscovering why I got into it.
How would you describe your style as a colorist, or do you think colorists have like a particular style?
Yeah, I've heard this talked about a lot on the internet. My style is whatever fits that particular project. There is no set style. Like, for instance, one time I was asked this years ago, they said, do you just like create these awesome looks and you store them up and then you just pop them out for every job? And I'm like, first of all, that wouldn't work. It's okay to save stills of looks to show clients. Like, hey, do you want it to look like this or that? But as far as using and applying that grade was specific to that particular project and how it was exposed and what camera was used. So many factors are involved in setting a look that works for that particular film or commercial. And this is going to sound kind of artsy, but it's true. Every film moves and breathes on its own. Every film has a life of its own, and you have to just dig in and start seeing what works to make this film that you're working on look its best. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, sometimes I ask the client, can you give me just give me a few minutes and let me discover what it's going to take to really get the best image? Because sometimes I have an idea of what I'm going to do. Like, I've got my standard workflow that I sort of start with, that I begin with. But then as I get into it, I start realizing, well, oh man, this is not working as well, like on this job, as it did the last job. So I have to have another approach. Like, well, maybe I'll try this then. And I kind of discover, like, oh, hey, when you start with printer lights, it really kind of just gets it in shape. And then when you do this trick, wow, it really snaps up. And, every job is different. So, my workflow kind of remains the same as far as the way I like to use my nodes. But other than that, every job can be very different from one from the other about what I'm going to do to tackle it and get it looking the best it can.
So are there any colorist work that you admire?
There are several. Of course, I was influenced heavily by Stefan Sonnefeld. I really enjoy Stefan Nakamura's work. I really like Steve Scott's work. I love Dave Hussey's work. And those guys I worked with. And they were kind enough to, before I left, I was always asking other colorists sort of what their ways were. And they were very transparent with me and let me know things they did. And I just applied all the things that I liked from what I heard from people and just made it my own. That's what we all do. We all, we start with our inspirations and we may imitate them at first. And then as you learn to develop your own voice, it suddenly becomes yours now. You suddenly put your own personal twist on it. Now that's you. That's a Josh thing now. That's a Mark thing now.
We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm actually still pretty interested in what you have to say about it. Now that it's less expensive to purchase any color grading software, is it good or bad for colorists? Because you remember a time when it was ultra expensive. There were $1 million bays, and the only way that you could learn is to know somebody to get into that room.
The other day, a young guy referred it to me as, you guys were this club that no one could get into. And I never thought about it that way. I don't think we were trying to be that way. It just was a niche thing. Yeah, there was very few of us doing it at that time. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool to kind of have this thing that not everybody did, and it made us more valuable. It made us very highly sought after and valuable because, everybody needed to do it for their films and only a certain amount of us did it. So there was a specialness to it. So, yeah, it's become a little more homogenized now that everything's easier to access. And the thing I wish that clients would understand, I mean, the A-list, the big clients get it. They know they need a good colorist. And even some of the second-tier people, a lot of them know it too. But some of the newer clients sometimes still don't understand what they're actually getting with a good colorist. They don't really quite understand where the money goes, I wish that there needs to be some more videos or something, some more to educate the up-and-comers on why you need someone who's really good at it, Again, I'm not a bad editor. I came from editing. I started at New Line Cinema as an apprentice editor. But if I'm going to make my feature film, I'm going to get someone that cuts every day. It's that they live and breathe cutting. That's where I know that person will bring a fresh perspective to it and probably do it 1,000,000 times better than I would. So, and I hear every now and then, once in a while, you lose a job to when someone's pinching the pennies and going, we're going to let our editor color it. He's pretty good at it. He's okay. And my answer is always like, you want to keep making commercials after this, right? Yeah. Well, then why would you let the last person to work on your film like someone who's just okay? Because that's what the project's going to look like. It's going to be just okay, not fantastic. You want it to sell you. You want to keep working after this. So again, you don't want it to end up looking like it was all shot on a Sony Handycam. You've spent this money in production on a Red Epic 5K or a Dragon or an Alexa. And now you're going to dumb it down by letting someone handle the color that's maybe okay, but not great. I don't understand that, but I don't think that some of the clients do understand that. That we just need to educate, I guess. We just have to keep talking.
Yeah, and I know that recently you're a member of the Color Society International as well, and one of their main goals, too, is to educate people about what colorists do. What are your thoughts about the Color Society? What made you join?
Well, this is something I've been talking about for years, as well as a lot of us have. I just think that we need to get recognized for our art. Colorists tend to be such a last-minute thought, at least in the freelance world, I've noticed. I get calls on a Friday to start a feature on Monday, or that weekend. And I always keep thinking, well, where was the planning? Like, what? You're just remembering that you've got to color it? So when it comes to awards, and I don't want to ever step on toes of DPs, but there's a fine line between how much we contribute and how much is the DPs, and that's a whole other discussion that we could get into. But I just think there's a point, there's somewhere how we got to get recognized for our parts in the final look of the movie. Sure, there are those scenes where it's so beautifully lit, it's so painted with light, it's in the digital negative. As soon as you start giving it contrast and a slight balance, it's already coming into place. And that's the DP's job. That's the DP did their job. But then, as you know, there's so many scenes that they didn't get to light it the way they wanted, or they didn't have the time. And then they're depending on you or I to spot the character and separate them from the background, and definitely shade that left half because it's too bright, and draw your eye back to the character, things like that. So we help shape the DP's work. And some of them, a lot of them, to their credit, they know they're going to do that. It's not like they were being, thoughtless on set. A lot of them know what they can and can't get away with in DI. So a lot of them just say, I'm going to let my colorist do that, which is fine too. It'd be really cool wouldn't it be cool to have, I don't know if they'll ever do this. They probably won't ever have an Academy Award for coloring, but it'd be cool to have some kind of recognition. It'd be really awesome if a DP would ever give credit to their colorist. I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you?
No, I've never seen it.
But I don't think we're going to get that. And I guess that's okay. I've lived with it for a long time, but I don't know. CSI is just about just bringing attention to our craft. Just letting the world know we are a group. We're a talented group of artists. We have a reason to be here and do what we do. So that's why I joined, and looking forward to seeing where it goes. It's just the beginning, so there's going to be probably much discussion and a lot of changes coming ahead for the group.
So to back up a little bit, we were talking about systems as well, and you were saying that you've worked on a lot of different systems, DaVinci 2K, Pablo, Resolve, Nucoda. Is there something about grading on a specific system that makes your grade different?
Well, yeah, you end up, for me, I grade differently on different systems just because the tools may not respond the way another system responds. Let me make it clear. I was just having a discussion with another colorist today online about this. I don't get into arguments with anybody about what system's better. I feel that they're all good systems out there. They're strong systems. And some may be more technically savvy than others, and some may be stronger in some areas. But overall, they all make pretty good pictures that are broadcast quality and very, very presentable. I just feel, the box shouldn't get in the way of the creativity. And when I'm on a system that's making me think about technology, that slows me down. If I have to drill into subfolders in order to get a tool I need, and there's no way of doing a macro for it, that wears on you after doing that several times throughout the day. I just like to be able to grab my tool and keep working and not think about the technology, unless I specifically need to think about technology. But usually when you're in a creative flow, you're in a flow and you just need to grab that tool. You do have to change your style of working when you get on a box that you haven't been on in a while. You've got to ramp back up. But usually it doesn't take me too long to remember where everything is on a particular system. And then I start getting the flow again, and it's all good after that. So it's just, every system works differently. And you always have to sort of refamiliarize yourself with how that particular system does things.
More and more, too, we're being asked to do, since we're the last person who touches the project, we're being asked to do a lot of the effects in the Bay. Like, good example is the latest Mad Max movie. They did a ton of sky replacements right in the base light. So what's been your experience with the VFX?
I don't know, that's been a subject that's been on the forefront of my world. At several facilities, I'm starting to get asked, let's say it's a 50 shot effects movie. They've got 50 shots and they are taking care of the bulk of them. But once in a while they'll say, hey, Mark, can you grab eight off our plate? Can you take 8 shots off? So we only have, 42. So I do my best to take care of them that way. There's a point where every job you have to judge, am I the best person to be working on this particular effect? Or is it at a level where it's like, your guy who does effects every day should be doing this because they can probably do it, quicker, or on a system that actually handles this particular task better. But having said that, I do like to help out and I do comps every now and then. I'll comp in things or maybe remove an object that needs to be removed. Years ago, when I was at Light Iron, I know there was a point where I was super excited about being able to paint wires out and being able to dirt fix. But when I told my clients that, none of them were excited about me painting. And the response I was getting from DPs and directors was, Mark, we're paying you for your eye to make our film look good. If we can get a guy half your rate at night to paint the wire out. So I kept running into that. So I realized that, they're right. I mean, there's a reason why I do what I do. It's good that I know enough VFX to help out and to be able to add to that. I mean, it's great, and you should learn as much as you can. But there becomes a point where you could take on so much effects where, okay, now you're doing all the effects now, and you're not coloring anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's a point where is it beneficial for the client? I don't mind if they want to pay my rate for me to do all the visual effects. But there's a point where I think it's more cost effective for them to get someone that does it every day as part of their job on a system that's better suited to do those effects. But I do visual effects in my color systems that they're visual effects to me. I do a lot of beauty skin work or beautification on skin softening, wrinkle reduction. I call it an effect when you've got to make a moving car going down the highway that was shot in noon sunlight, midday sunlight, and you got to make it a believable dusk or a night shot. That's an effect. It takes a lot of crafting to get that to look believable in real time. It may look good on a still, but once you push play, does it actually work? I've set looks years ago where a shot looked great as a still, and as soon as I pushed play, it fell apart. So there's an art to that, to being able to, that's an effect too. It's just not an effect that roto artists and that, the things that they do, it's a little different. And speaking of roto, that's another thing. I can roto, but there's a point where if there's so much roto to be done, I always will ask the flame artist, or when it has to be done at a very finite level, that's when I will usually defer that to a flame artist if there is one available in the company. And it helps out. That way I can stay on color, especially nowadays they're asking us to do more and more in a shorter amount of time. So we have to work fast and at a high level, but get it, and you got to bring it in at the same, at the time that they're expecting. So there's a lot of pressure on colorists to time manage. So there's a point where, I always will say, give me 10 minutes. If they ask me for a visual effect, I'll say, give me 10 minutes. If I spend more than 10 minutes on it, then we're going to ship this off to visual effects. But, sometimes in 10 minutes, I realize, wait, I actually can do this one. Clients usually will give me the few minutes to play and discover whether I'm the one for that particular effect or whether we need to just put that on the wish list of visual effects they want accomplished, and then decide who will do that. And they can negotiate with the producer, how many shots they're going to do and all that. So. Yeah. But I do like to do effects. I mean, I like that I can do. I like expanding my tool set constantly. I mean, that's why I was excited to go to Camera and Paste, because Vince told me, he said, Mark, color, you've got that down, but what you're going to learn is how to do good stereo. You're going to learn what bad stereo is, and you're going to learn what good stereo is. So one of the first things he put me on after I colored that movie for him was he put me on as a stereo specialist among some other stereo specialists there on Hugo. And I just did corner pinning and left and right eye matching to make sure they matched together. So that was a good experience. So yeah, I like learning. I like learning new tips and new tricks and expanding my tool set.
So if you were starting as a colorist today, what advice would you give?
I would still say that they need to just study up on film. Go back and get some of the older books on film and exposing film. And I would even encourage them, if they could, to grab some film, shoot some Super 8. I think they should definitely learn what the digital world has been trying to emulate. So, and then I would suggest that they, you can learn from watching other movies. You watch all the movies you can, watch all the commercials, of course, that you can. I study the great painters, because a lot of what we do, we're sort of emulating what they did in great paintings in regards to shadow and light. When you look across a frame from east to west, there should be variations of shadow and light. And that's kind of what we're doing with our power windows, and that's what the DPs are doing with their lighting. And we're just helping them to seal the deal and bring it all to fruition, bring it all to 100%. So yeah, I'd say that they should always just study any of the great painters, study any of the great photographers. Definitely look at photos. Take as many photos into your memory as you can. And then, of course, you need to practice daily on the tool of your choice, and you're only going to get good by doing it. And you got to do it and do it and do it. And like you said, maybe you do need to do free jobs at first, enough to get a portfolio built. You can go up and down the street all day long saying you're an awesome colorist, but no one's going to believe you unless you have something to show for yourself. So you need to be able to show them what you can do. And that's what I would recommend, is just practice and study.
Where do you think things are going to go with color in the future? Take something like HDR. That's a really big thing that's coming up in the industry as far as giving us the ability to have more dynamic range.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're all going to have to do. And I don't think it's going to be that, much different. In fact, I'm getting ready to do an HDR test. I'm scheduled to do it tomorrow. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, though, to be looking at things in such a high nit range. I would say, here's one thing I can say that I see changing in the industry, at least for me, is the clients are driving a lot of the work now from post houses into people's houses, into the artists' houses. 2 years ago, when I first started to do a couple of commercials here and there out of my home office, I never set out to be a post house in my house. And I still don't really particularly want to be a post house, but the clients are driving it, especially this past year. A lot of clients are just like, no, we want to do it at your place. So I do see that. I have a feeling, and more and more VFX artists are doing work out of their homes, and I'm seeing that trend. I don't know how long that will last, if that's going to get more and more as time goes on, or if who knows, maybe it's a phase and it'll kind of swing back into going to the post houses again. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm seeing now. And there's advantages to that, but there's also disadvantages. But I do enjoy working at a post house. You get the full support of a facility at a post house. Yeah, that's about all I can say for the future. As far as I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about where we're heading. I'm having a tough enough time just keeping up with where we're at right now, because in 5 months it's going to change again. That's what's crazy about this business, is just keeping up with all the changes. Just when you get into a workflow and you're digging, suddenly that camera's now obsolete, or that tool is obsolete because there's a better tool.
Thank you, Mark, for talking to me. It's been really great to hear your perspective on everything here. So if people want to get in contact with you, where can they find you? I have a few social media sites on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the main site you can go to is my webpage at marktoddosborne.com. And from there, that you can find anything you want to know about me. Thanks again, Mark. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.